Wow, that was easy! Okay, no, it definitely wasn't easy. Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to talk a little bit, just a very little bit, about the new patch arena that's just put out, Tequatl Rising. If you've been out of the loop, this patch addresses difficult content in Guild Wars 2. This is something recently a lot of people have been talking about. I think as the years gone along, everyone's realised, hold on, Guild Wars 2 isn't really that hard, and it's true, and it's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people point to Guild Wars 2 as a casual game. And I think largely it has been marketed towards casual people, but they did also say multiple times, like in their MMO manifesto, that this game was meant to be for everyone, that there was meant to be something there for hardcore players too. They have started to address this. I actually think they started to address difficult content a few months back when we had the Crown Pavilion and they introduced the Liadri the Undying fight. But a lot of the difficult content that they've added, like Tribulation Mode 2 for the Super Adventure Box, hasn't really been around the core gameplay that Guild Wars 2 offers. It's not been around 5v5 dungeon encounters, and it's not been around zerg combat, okay? Those are the two main things Guild Wars 2 was trying to push forward. Obviously, you got all the big zerg culture, everybody coming together in both world versus world, but also for PvE too, with a lot of the group events and the meta chains that people run for their daily chests. And then you've got all the dungeons, right? The personal stories, the smaller scale, really structured 5 content. Neither of those formats have ever really been difficult for Guild Wars 2. For a while at the start of the game, the dungeons were rock solid, really difficult. I've got some videos buried on my channel from when the game first came out where me and a few friends went through and did Ascalon Catacombs explorable mode at the level that it requires, like level 35, and we all had like masterwork gear and stuff. That was hard. That was hours and hours of really plotting, working our way through incredibly difficult content. And looking back, it was also incredibly fun. I ran Ascalon Catacombs explorable mode for the first time in a long time just the other day and flew through all of the content really quickly, really easily, and every little fight that we'd spent maybe an hour in meticulously analysing how all the rooms worked, how the traps worked, how best to fight the bosses, we just sort of flew through in a couple of seconds, and it felt like there was a lot of wasted content there. And it was one of those moments where I too realised Guild Wars 2 really isn't challenging anymore. As soon as you hit level 80, a lot of the dungeons in particular have not been challenging. ArenaNet, as I say, okay, to go back to the original point, they've started to address this issue with this patch. Tequatl Rising doesn't look at the 5v5 combat, though I'm sure that is coming. This looks at the big zerg fights, the dragons. There are 3 main meta event chains in Guild Wars 2 right now that before this patch were very easy to do, completely unrewarding to do compared to other meta events that existed, and while cinematic, got rather boring once you were maybe on your 10th run through, right? And there were 3 of them. There was the Shatterer, Kraukatorix champion, there was the Claw of Jormag, Jormag's champion, and finally Tequatl the Sunless of Zaitan. Of all of them, even though the Shatterer is really easy to kill, of all of them, I think Tequatl was the most bare bones worst of all of them, because Tequatl never really had any events that meant anything in its meta event chain. Tequatl had a really large open battlefield filled with turrets and potentially interesting mechanics, a mega laser that nobody ever used because frankly it was easier to stand at his feet and hack at his ankles until he died. So ArenaNet, upon recognising this, have taken it upon themselves to revamp the Tequatl fight entirely and make it difficult. It's really difficult. I've just come from my first attempt. Emery Bay is the server I'm on. I was on the main server. Just come from my first attempt at trying to kill this dragon. There was an insanely huge zerg of players there, about 50,000 commanders running around. And we managed to do maybe 10%, and that's pushing it, of his health before the event failed, which was fascinating to see. So one key thing that they've actually changed across all of the big bosses in the game now, guys, is they can all fail. Before, they used to spawn. One big strength of the dynamic event system was supposedly that it would create this living world and that you wouldn't have enemies sitting around picking daisies waiting for you to kill them. And then they added all the big mega bosses at launch who quite literally would spawn and then pick daisies waiting for you to kill them. Like Jormag would spawn and then just wait and stand there and not really attack anyone. And it completely undermined the idea of what a dynamic event was meant to be. So finally, ArenaNet have made one uniform change across all these big bosses. They all have to be killed within a certain time frame before they piss off and go and do their own thing again, and you failed. So Tequatl Gives you 15 minutes, and boy is it punishing. Now you can't just hack at his ankles either to try and secure the kill. You've got to keep the turrets well repaired and have defensive players using them effectively to buff the zerg around them with quickness and might and fury, and to defend them with protection and regeneration, while constantly using the turrets themselves to shoot Tequatl and keep this really dangerous buff that is constantly stacking on him down. Because when that buff rises too high, he's going to summon this massive bone wall that gives him complete invulnerability, and that's really dangerous. If you guys remember, the Shatterer has a mechanic like this, where he bows his head down and he becomes invulnerable, but that never really meant anything because you had all the time in the world to kill these bosses before. Now you don't. Now if you're not doing enough damage, now if you're letting Tequatl defend himself, you're going to run out of time. And I can see that with this incredibly difficult content, we're going to have some really clutch moments coming up in the game now, where the boss is so close to dying, but we've only got like 30 seconds left to finish the event, and either it's going to be this great victory or this massive, massive failure. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really happy that ArenaNet have started to address this idea of difficult Zerg content, but I wanted to do this video for two main reasons, to ask you guys two questions. First of all, how did your server do? Because we got 10% of his health down and that's pushing it. I'm wondering if anyone managed to beat him first time at all. And if nobody really did manage to do that, and as far as I can tell, nobody has really managed to beat him on their first time through, it means that what we have here is some really good content that you have to fully understand. All the individuals in the Zerg have to do a lot more than just mindlessly hack away and use their skills. They really have to pay attention to the objectives, how to use the turrets, how to use the mega laser to most effectively kill this boss. Who, by the way, also, I never mentioned, has like these giant tidal wave attacks and things. People need to learn this stuff. And it will be really curious for me if the response to this video is, oh no, we never managed to do it, we never managed to do it, we never managed to do it. And then in a couple of months we're hearing that loads of people are being able to do it. I think that's a really good sign of very healthy and engaging content that ArenaNet's put in the game. But also I wanted to do this video to ask you guys a question, okay, a really serious question, because I found something out about myself today. Did you have fun? I'm pretty sure everyone failed, right? If you failed, which I'm pretty sure you did, how much fun did you have? Now, of course, the fight is very cinematic again, okay? We've got this big tidal wave, but cinematic stuff, to me, and I think to many people, falls short very quickly. Because, think about it, in about 10 times you've done this boss, you're not going to be marveling at the sight of the tidal wave or the height that you can get on the jump pads anymore, right? Which do look very fantastic right now. I love the jump pads right now, but that stuff will wear thin. I'm wondering, for the encounter itself, even though it was really difficult content, does really difficult content work in a Zerg? Because we failed that, and I felt like I was doing really well. I thought I was doing really well on my part on the turret, and yet we failed anyway, largely because of the ignorance of the community right now, which is not something to shout about, which lots of people did in map chat, by the way. It's not something to shout about, but we failed because the Zerg as a whole was largely ignorant of what to do. Do you think this will be fun once everyone does know what to do? I'm really curious about that, because I know I find very difficult stuff in the 5-man setting incredibly fun and incredibly rewarding, but when I'm just one person out of 200 and my individual contribution is harder to measure, is it going to feel so good even though we're failing now, and even though we do have this very difficult challenge? And that's a really interesting question, I think, and it's something that I'm learning about myself, and I guess we'll see how it goes as the months go by now and people continue to fight Tequatl. My only other worry with this patch, though, is awesome, and I really encourage people to go in and try if you've really been looking for difficult content in Guild Wars 2 and cinematic content too. This Tequatl Rising patch is going to be massive for that. The other thing I'm very curious about is, where's the threshold for it becoming too hard? At what point does the server say, screw it, we're not going to bother with this is too difficult, it so rarely succeeds, the rewards aren't worth the effort, I'm not going to go for it? At what point do we reach that? It's just like the Claw of Jormag. Barely anyone's fighting the Claw of Jormag right now because there's very little reward compared to just killing the Fire Elemental. Now, the Claw of Jormag's been made even harder now, but I doubt people will still do it, even though they've added a tiny bit more incentive in the way of champion strongboxes too. I doubt people will do it. So that's my main question for Tequatl, the Sunlust right now. I would love to know what you guys think about this patch. This is what this video is more for. I really want to have a bit of a discussion in the comments. Let me know. First of all, I just want to know how much damage you managed to do to him. And how much fun really was this? Difficult Zerg content. Finally, they're putting difficult content in the game. But is it going to be fun, or is it just going to be abandoned for being too difficult? I guess we'll see. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. There's a lot more stuff that I was hoping for in the patch. The LFG tool is out for the game as well. That's something else massive people have been complaining about with Guild Wars 2. There is now a looking for group tool, but it's in beta stage, so I can't really get footage or talk about that just yet. Also, there were some leaked patch notes about a skill balance update that was supposed to be coming that I was really excited about. They actually did some cool stuff with conjure weapons. They made a lot of the invulnerability skills, elementalist to have access to a lot more viable, but that hasn't actually been put in game yet, it seems, so I don't know when that's coming. I will talk about that when it comes, though. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about Tequatl, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one, everyone.